Street like when you came to town?
Well, Duval Street, the Gulf side, was where the shrimp boats came in, the docks, but at the end of the street, there were a couple of kind of bawdy houses, really. They'd have shows with strippers and whatnot, and none of them were very good. Duval chiefly was stores in the upper end, and more in the lower end, it was one bar after another. And they were really beer places that catered to the sailors. And when you came down there in the morning to go to work, the first odor that hit your nose was the smell of pine sol and stale beer. And then if you were lucky, you could get the whiff of coffee from Simonton Street.
Beer and pine sol.
Yeah.
That's how you
And the other thing that was amusing were the buses. The buses were painted white. They were very old and they had a lot of rust, and they also had red trim. And they didn't seem to have any particular time schedule. And they would pick you up, you know, if you flagged them down most anywhere along the way. But then again, when the driver saw somebody he knew, he would stop and chat with who he knew. And that's how it went. So you never took them if you were on a schedule.
Interesting, very interesting. So you remember the buses, the pine sol, the beer,
Yeah.
Lots of stores on Duval Street. Rita, how would you describe Old Key West?
Old Key West, I would have said it was a beautiful island. Basically, our industry was the military, because the naval base was going strong. The airfield was here too. And fishing, the pink gold shrimp had just been discovered a few years before. And you would see the large shrimp trucks on the streets. And if you got behind one, woo-hoo, they would drip water and the water would be shrimpy. And in the summer, it was delightful.
Tell me about the Wild Wild West days, also known as the drug smuggling. Do you remember those?
Oh, the square grouper? Oh, yes, oh, yes. And it was funny how you noticed when it was first getting going that real estate was very cheap. And suddenly, these people who'd hit it rich with the square grouper were buying houses for cash. And these are people who had no great income. And it kept getting more and more. And then you'd hear this one you knew being in it, and whoever else you knew was in it. It was almost to the point where one who wasn't in it. And of course we had some colorful people. Our police chief, Jimmy James, Manny James's son, who was a good lawyer, but he represented most of the ones. Said that he was probably one of the brains behind a lot of it. And we had Bumfardo, the colorful fire chief, who disappeared, and he had Perez Bakery. And another one was another policeman by the name of Casimir was mixed up in it. Yeah, it was very, very colorful.
Did you just try and stay away from it all, Rita?
Oh, no. I can remember a fellow who worked with me, and in the, I guess it was Bayesian company at that time, and they went out a lot. He and his wife, he was ex-military flyer, and he said, "Oh, Rita, you got to go to La Di Da. It's an experience. You go to La Di Da, and you have dinner, and the food is good, and you sit at a family-style table, and then afterwards, they pass around the pot." So we went. And we took my mother, and I forgot who else. And it was kind of fun because afterwards, I think it was someone who was sitting at our table had the marijuana and was passing around and whatnot. My stepson was with me, and of course, I probably would have liked it, but he declined. and Leo Hicks, a friend of ours, was with us. He was a good pal of my mother's. And as they were smoking in the room, he said to Mother, "Come on now, Miss Jessie, breathe deeply." It was fun.
So you had a good experience
Yeah.
from those days.
Yeah, you kind of have to live with the times, to find out what's going on.
That's right. Rita, were there ever times when you wanted to leave Key West, or did you know that this was going to always be your home?
No, I was here. Mm-hmm. We talked about moving, my first husband and I, back when, and maybe elsewhere where business would be better, because it was kind of slow here. And, but we never did.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about all the changes that Key West has gone through throughout the years?
Well, I guess like everything, some changes are good and some you don't particularly like. Mm-hmm. I don't like how crowded we are now. And I don't really like the fact that we allowed all the guest houses to be built with no parking. Back when I had to put the cars in the street and horns going off. Fun and games. And you can't park in front of your house, not so good. But I thought it was wonderful when Ed Swift and Mo Mosher started all the rebuilding of the stores and made them attractive, and they had a lot of new storekeepers come in, and a lot of nice little restaurants, and look at Fast Buck Freddy's, what an addition that was. But
what about Fantasy Fest, Rita?
Oh, I went to the first Fantasy Fest, one every year for 13 years, and they said enough's enough, much drinking. And frankly, I don't like looking at a lot of not very desirable bodies loaded.
Me either.
But it is what it is.
Rita, what would you say to someone who's never been to Key West before? How would you describe it?
Oh, I'd say it was the oldest city in Key West. Very delightful, different from the mainland. The weather's great because you don't get all the rain. And actually, it's a lot cooler than a lot of the places in the mainland where you don't get the sea breeze. And great for fishing, outdoor activities. And it just has a warm atmosphere. Because you can come here and not be pestered by the media or whatever else. It's live and let live.